Do your conversations turn into arguments? Like you just start off talking generally and then boom, turns into a fight, turns into an argument. It's a repeating pattern. So there's something going on over here. There's a lot of defensiveness that's going on over here, and we can work on that. We can fix this. So let's jump into it. Let's learn how to stop being defensive and how to listen a little bit better. So being defensiveness is common. If you have it, I'm glad you're here. You're doing the right thing, and it's awesome that you're aware of it and you notice it. I think a lot of people struggle because it repeats and repeats and repeats, and they don't understand there's something internally that's going on in those moments that's adding to the situation. The being defensive is like a check engine light that needs your attention, but it's not your fault. You never knew what to do about it, and now you will. Now you learn what to do, and you'll see it as an opportunity to connect more with yourself, and then naturally be able to be more present in conversations and be able to listen and tune into your partner when they're speaking. So we're going to talk about this from a few angles, but working on being defensive is worth your while because it enables you to be present, to be a better listener. Your partner will feel heard, understood. Your friends heard and understood. The walls between you and other people in the situation will start to come down, so you can feel closer, feel more. You will feel more heard and connected, and the relationships are much more enriching. You'll feel more rewarded. You'll feel more close to other people. Let's jump into it based upon over 15 years of therapy and working with people as a therapist and sitting with couples and watching them struggle and go through this. So you're in good hands. You're in the right place. And it's very common to go through this. So let's jump into it. And always this is our approach. If I want to fix something, if you want to fix and work something, I want to get this right, which is from now on, when you're trying to work on something, first understand, wait a minute, why do I do this? What's it about? What's happening over here? Too much what's out there is a lot of self-help stuff that jump in, fix it, change it, make it go away. It doesn't really work. It's like a frontal attack on whatever that issue is. And it's too intense. It doesn't really work. It's also hard to succeed. We don't really know what we're dealing with and what we're working with. And what I have found is a lot of people are incredibly out of touch with themselves, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things. To your credit, you're here. So you're listening to this video. So there is that self-awareness that something's going on that needs your attention. But that's a general rule. So let's get into it. Being defensive is a check engine light. Noticing yourself getting defensive in conversations, in situations, is a part of you desperately trying to get your attention. And the fact that it's so strong, it's so intense, happens so fast, so quick, there's something here that's been with you for a long time. Call it an inner child part. We can talk about that. But there's something very real over here. But to your credit, I'm glad you're here. It takes a lot of courage to face stuff. And most people never face their stuff. They spend life avoiding. In life, you're either an avoider or a facer. We want to heal, so we're trying to become a facer. Big part of facing some of the things we struggle with is to say, okay, wait a minute, there's a pattern here, something's going on over here, something needs your attention, something is repeating itself, and let think about it a little bit rather than otherwise you're doomed to repeat it over and over again. You don't want that. So that defensiveness is that we're being triggered. Okay, there's something we're reading into the situation. There's something you're assuming in the situation. There's something you're hearing and feeling. You're labeling something as something. That's something that you are doing. It's like a set of glasses that you wear through which you perceive everything that's going on. It doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but there's something about the situation that's familiar. And so therefore, to protect yourself, to survive, to handle that situation, you are jumping in, you are assuming certain things about the situation that's going on, and so that's what's happening over here. But we can use that when you are defensive. Those are great opportunities to learn more about what's happening. So a lot of the triggers that come up, it's a lot of am I being rejected? Am I being criticized? Am I being told I'm not worthy or deserving or good enough? There's a very strong emotional reaction that's going on when you're being defensive. The thing is, it doesn't always really have to do with what the person is saying. And like they are saying something to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean what you think that it means. And certainly they're allowed to feel if they're having a certain experience. So this is opportunities to get in touch with a part of ourselves. This is what people mean when they talk about shadow work, or people mean when they say I have an inner child. These strong emotional reactions are a real check engine light that there's something going on that we need to tune into, that we need to tend to, that we need to get to know more about. So let's get a few examples so we know what we're talking about over here. Okay. Let's say, for example, your partner says to you, you're always on the phone during dinner. Okay. So what could they be saying over there? Is I would like to spend time with you. Maybe they could say it a little bit better, but certainly they're allowed to feel that, right? As you and I sit here and talk about it, be honest, they're allowed to say that, right? So why do you react so strongly in the moment? is because, and then you go, well, you're not perfect either, or you're always on your phone. That's a defensive reaction. You've not acknowledged what the person was saying. You're responding to what you think you heard them say. They said, you're always on the phone during dinner. You heard, tell me what you heard. I'm bad, I'm no good, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I have a problem with my phone, I'm addicted to my phone, I'm a terrible person, I'm a failure. You see, we're read into that, but the person at its surface, they just said, you're really always on the phone. Again, could they say it better? Yes, but for relationships to succeed, we've got to exist on two levels. There's what they say and how they say it, and that they're allowed to say things and feel, but then there's deeper underneath is the strong emotions that are triggered in you. That's what I want to help you get in touch with and connect to. So the person is saying that you're always on your phone at dinner. You could react in an avoidant way, which is assuming you know what they mean and what they intend. And it's very similar. You've been in that position before. That's why you're acting. And so you think you're being judged and criticized, and you defend right away. Well, you do it also, and that kind of a thing. But that's coming from but what's neglected here, first of all, they're not now able to have their feelings. The person's allowed to say that, listen, between you and me, it would be better if the person would say, listen, you're on their phone during dinner and I feel rejected. I feel unimportant. I feel disconnected from you. I wish instead you wouldn't. Okay. All right. Now it's more hearable, but I want to get you to that place, and then you can help your partner speak to you better. But for your part, that defensive reaction is basically rejecting what they're saying because you're feeling criticized. You're feeling judged. You're an inattentive person. You feel labeled. Again, play the reporter here. What was actually said? They said, you're on your phone a lot at dinner. Between you and me right now, because you're not in the situation. And this is how you work on triggers. Anytime you have a strong emotional reaction that doesn't really fit the situation, that's an emotional trigger. Needs your attention, needs you to tune in, but do it this way. Reflect back on it. Happened an hour ago, happened last week, happened a day ago, right? They're not allowed to say what they said. I mean, they're feeling it, okay? Even if they could say it in a better way. You have now come in and become defensive, that there's something, you're assuming that you know what they mean. You're assuming what the intention is over there. And that's that criticism, but it's putting you in touch with a part. This is the part that never gets touched on at all, which is that why do you feel so criticized? There's a part of you that worries that you're not good enough. There's a part of you that worries, am I worthy? Am I valid? Am I deserving? Am I okay? Am I successful? Am I acceptable? It worries about that. Let's take a look at another example, okay? You have a friend, you make plans, the friend cancels the plans, and you say, figures are always so flaky. Or you cancel plans, something like that. They cancel, and you go, oh, they're always so flaky, So let's say it was, that's your reaction, okay? They cancel plans and go, always so flaky. Aren't they allowed to cancel plans? Like maybe they have a legitimate reason, but right away we're assuming. And they say when you assume, you make an ASS out of you and me, but assumptions are also a big, powerful check engine light. Assumptions, being defensive or whatnot. But yeah, we feel all of a sudden, see, I'm not valued. I'm not worthy of your time. You're going through a certain emotional reaction to the fact that they canceled, but on the surface, all they did was say, I can't go. Are some of those concerns true that you have? Possibly, but you can't know that unless you actually sit and talk with them. The fact that you're having a very strong emotional reaction, that's something very real. And that's coming from somewhere. It's a part that's desperate to get your attention. I don't feel valued. I don't feel prioritized. And as you go deeper into it, you realize it goes all the way back to childhood. Let's look at another example, okay? Somebody says, you bring up a point, and the person says, oh, you're overreacting, you're overreacting to this whole thing. I'm basically rejecting them. I'm being defensive. It's really this rejection. I'm not acknowledging what the person has said. I'm basically rejecting it out of my own insecurities, right? And so it's this, it touches on this, I'm being told I'm overreacting. I'm basically being told, don't feel. You're being told, don't feel. You're being told you're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not allowed to have a voice. And that can be really, really triggering. That's the defensiveness. That's what's going on over there. That's that reaction. So again, here's what's happening is that the person is saying something to you. There are words that are being said. You don't fully know what the intention is, but as you're interacting with it, the feelings that are coming up for you are quite familiar, and you're reacting to that. You're assuming there's something about them and what they're saying that is similar to things you've been through in the past. What you've been through in the past is, I've been rejected, I've been hurt, I've been told I'm not good enough, I've often felt invalidated or unworthy of people's time. That's real. Does that mean that the other person is actually doing that to you? No, not necessarily. You can't possibly know that unless you ask them. But the defensiveness is a sign that there's something in you that's desperate to have your attention, desperate to talk to you. So let's talk a little bit of some motivation to work on this, because none of this is easy. I think people who try to work on themselves and grow are some of the most courageous people, because the vast majority of people are avoiding what's going on with them emotionally, drinking, drugging, self-medicating, blaming, manipulating, projecting it onto other people. So the fact that you're even here trying to work through it, I think is really impressive. But let's be motivated, because when being defensive, assuming what's going on, we know why the person shared what they shared, is going to put up a lot of walls. It's going to put distance between you and your partner. They're not going to feel really heard and understood. You're not really going to feel heard and understood. And so you're basically sharing space. The relationship is not growing. It's not thriving. You're not continuing to connect with each other. It doesn't feel good. Feels kind of empty. Feels kind of lonely. Feels kind of fearful. And it also damages the trust between two people. Like a basic core principle in a relationship is two people need to hear and understand each other. That's a core feature of a relationship, to hear and understand each other. And where that doesn't occur, well, then I don't know if I feel safe. I don't know if I feel I can trust you in this relationship, because I'm not allowed to be me. We'll talk about this more in a second, because it's so crucial and important, but the relationship is not going to thrive. The defensiveness is you not taking care of a part of you that needs your attention, and your partner certainly not feeling they're allowed to say what they need to say or do what they need to do. And this is just going to make it ice cold, with huge distance and a lot of walls between the two of you. So let's start to work on this in two ways. We're going to work on it personally when those defensive moments. We're going to connect to it personally, and I'm going to teach you what you can do as a couple. Okay, so I want you, if you're going to work on this, take the next few days and be on the lookout for moments that you're defensive, or at least once a day, try to think of a recent time in which you were defensive. You may not realize it, because it may be happening so fast to you, and your partner says you're always getting so defensive, and then you're defensive about being defensive. But it's to start to think about it, in either moments from the past when you were defensive will come up, or you're now going to be more on the lookout because you're more open to it, because I'm teaching you tools about how to connect to it. And I'm encouraging you that it's okay. It's a part of you with making a bid for your attention. It's not that you're bad or wrong, but it is intense, because the feelings that are present every time you feel defensive, every time you act or speak in a defensive way, those are very deep, familiar feelings that can take you all the way back to childhood, likely memories of interactions with parents, friends, teachers. So what you need to do is to, at least once a day, is to start to get to notice the patterns of your defensive times. You want to stop for a moment. See if you can create like 1 minute a day, 2 minutes a day. You have like an emotional workout. Stop, pause, breathe, find that moment, think about that moment, reflect on that moment. You want to try to connect with the feelings that were coming up. And I say to do it this way because I think it's too intense in the moment to catch yourself and stop yourself when you're getting defensive. You could say, let's take a time out. But there's got to be reflection on the feelings. And so to create a space, to take a meditative, contemplative moment, where meditation means just, I'm going to choose how I'm going to use my mind for the next minute. And I'm going to climb back into a recent moment in which I admit I was very defensive in that moment, or I was told I was defensive. I want to get to know it. What was going on with me? Where in the body was I feeling that moment? Try to really imagine that scene, that moment. Or if you remember a snippet of the conversation, at least, you're trying to get back into that feeling, that gut feeling that you felt, that to which you responded by being very defensive. And see if you can start to name it. I encourage people to work with a feelings chart. If you search online feelings chart, you'll see all kinds of options. It doesn't matter which one you use, or you could use the app How We Feel. It doesn't matter. You need to be presented with words to help you get suggestions of what it is that you may be feeling, because most of us don't have any vocabulary to know what we feel. We simply don't. And so as you're calm and as you're breathing and as you're reconnecting to this moment and meditating on it and putting yourself back in that situation, recalling whatever you can, see if you can notice where in the body that pit of feelings starts to come up from. See if you can find a feelings chart, and just as you glance through it, see if you can pick up a few words that names the feelings. This is how you start to connect with those moments and realize this is what's generating the defensiveness. Rejected, unworthy, undeserving, no good, invalidated. You'll see that there's a lot going on for you in that moment. And rather than having tuned into those feelings and be okay with those feelings and not assume the other person is trying to make you feel those feelings, you've been avoiding it, which is, let me just be defensive. It's not your fault. Again, everyone either faces or avoids, and most people are avoiding because they don't know how to face. This is how you start to face. And the easiest way is to reflect back on these moments. And you want to sit with those feelings and be with those feelings and realize that two things are true. When your partner says something, they're allowed to feel. They're allowed to have a critique of you. They're allowed to say, I need something, I don't like something, you do this, you don't do that. They're allowed. It'll be best if they say it in a hearable way, which is I feel statements. When you do this, when you say this, I feel like this. Or you could say when you do this or say this, I feel like this, and I wish instead you would do this. Using the feeling words rather than you do this and you're such a jerk, like our example. And when we have dinner, you're always on your phone, and it sucks, and you're horrible and terrible, and you're a jerk, and I hate it. Okay, they're allowed to feel it. It's just hard to hear it. But there's a big parentheses. But the best way is to say, listen, when we sit together at dinner, I notice you're on your phone a lot, and I feel, because you can't know what the other person feels. That was the point over here. Is you're assuming you know why they're saying what they say and what they mean when they say it. This is going to help you break through it. So then two things are separate. They're allowed to feel what they feel. They're allowed to have an opinion. They're allowed to have a voice. It does not mean that they're rejecting you. It's simply this particular behavior, this particular thing you say, then leaves me feeling like this. That's all. It's then up to you as their partner. Do you care about them? Do you like them? Do you want to be more connected? Well, you were just given a piece of advice. If you'll do more of these things and less of those things, then you'll feel more of a connection. Obviously, the vast majority of the relationship can't be this kind of feedback. It should be 80%, 20%, 8% positive, connected, fun, enjoying each other. Then the 20% of working through some of these feedback can work, but they're allowed to feel. But you're also being put in touch with a bunch of feelings. The feelings don't necessarily have to do with the situation. You're assuming they do. If it's true that your partner's rejecting you, and now you're reliving a whole bunch of rejection experiences that you experienced early on in your life and you still carry, that's still not on your partner, that's on you. Both things are true. There's the surface level and what they're saying and whether you agree or not and how they say it and the better way to say it and whatnot. But the fact that there's a strong emotional reaction, that's for you. When people talk about, bringing emotional baggage into a relationship, emotional wounds, that's what this is. It's upon each person to take a look at it. It's normal in a relationship to experience that kind of stuff. You should be looking for that and expecting it. And with good partners, it's an opportunity to work through it. So couples that struggle are couples where it remains on the surface. It's I blame you, you blame me, but nobody's looking deeper and going deeper down into their own stuff. No one's doing that. You're not going to be the way, you're going to break out. So the first thing is your own personal work, reflecting back on those moments that you were triggered with a defensive trigger to try to get to know, like forget the partner, forget everything else. Just I know, experience some tense emotions. You were there. You and those emotions need to start to build a relationship. That's an inner kid part. Those feelings need your attention. What you're going to find when you start to name feelings is that you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words off of the feelings chart. I was feeling that an hour ago. You were feeling that an hour ago when your partner, said something, but you felt those feelings before. Very often memories will start to come up in our school years, our childhood years with the same feelings. And we realize you're really experiencing the same kind of thing over and over again. It's time to break out of that. It's time to tune into it. The other way to work on the defensiveness is to practice hearing and understanding each other. You could do something called the 1-minute drill, where you let your partner speak for a minute, you reflect back to them what you hear, then and they correct you, and then you reflect again until they feel they heard it, and then you could switch roles. It's based on 2 major rules, okay, and a deep understanding. You must understand in a relationship with you and your partner that hearing and understanding each other is absolutely crucial. It's non-negotiable. It's so important. But what makes it hard for people to do that is that you have to put in 2 rules. Hearing and understanding each other does not mean, number 1, that you agree. You may still disagree. Number 2, it doesn't mean you give up your right to feel as you feel and express what you do. And so in this way, between working on the emotions that come up that when you find yourself being defensive, and then the 2 of you working really hard to create an environment where you focus on hearing and understanding each other, not assuming what you're going to find is naturally you're less reactive, less defensive in those moments. Less of that deeper stuff comes up, even though the situation is similar. Anytime someone's going to give you criticism, if you have a rejection wound, you've been through that rejection as a kid, that's going to come up, but you're going to feel it less and less and less intense because you're tending to then tuning into it. So people say, I'm working on myself. What does that mean? Well, this is what it means. You're going to be connecting to those moments. You use the triggering moments, use the argument moments to learn more about yourself, to go deeper into yourself, to connect to yourself, and provide yourself what you needed, which is what's the opposite of rejection? Validation, reassurance, acceptance, understanding, compassion, and do it again and again and again, like workouts, and you'll see results. Like if I go to the gym regularly, consistently, I'm going to see results. Emotional work is the same. So that's 2 ways in which you could work on it. So to recap over here, being defensive is damaging and hurtful in a relationship, and we've got to break out of that. It puts a lot of walls between 2 people. Someone is sharing what they feel. When we eat dinner together, you're very often on your phone. That's legitimate feedback. The person's allowed to share. Hopefully they share it in a way of their feelings, like when you're on your phone, I feel distant from you or rejected by you. But your reaction about being defensive is you imposing that on the situation, but it's not your fault. Something about the feedback that you're getting from the other person, they cancel plans last minute. You're telling you're on your phone too often. These kinds of things, that feelings, those defensive feelings that are coming up is a desperate bid to connect to you and to talk to you, to get to know why is it. There's something about that situation that's very, very familiar. When you tap into that, and you connect to it and you get to know it better, what you're going to see then is you're naturally less and less reactive in those moments. It becomes easier to tune in and listen and hear. If every time my partner says something like you're always on your phone or something like that, or I wish you wouldn't be on your phone so much, I assume they're attacking me. I assume they're criticizing me. I assume they're rejecting me. What you're going to find in such moments, you just can't hear them. But there's a desperate need for couples to hear each other. So what I'm sharing with you over here is basically you hear you. The triggering stuff that comes up is something that you need to hear for yourself. And the more that you do that, the more naturally you'll find situations where you can actually have a calm conversation. Like, really, you feel I'm on the phone. Tell me more. What's going on? You can't do that if you're assuming that they're rejecting you and putting you down, which they're not necessarily. You're just assuming that out of your old triggers. So jump in and hopefully you get less defensive, more open, more compassionate with yourself, and your relationship thrives.